In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Dear students, our today's lesson is about comprehension, and our top lesson is the silver lining, page number 25. I'm your teacher, Imtiaz Hussain, SS English in DPS and College, Sahiwal. Before starting the lesson, these are objectives of the lesson. The learners will be able to explain lesson in their own words, interpret conclusion, make formation of noun and form adverbs from adjectives. So these are our today's objectives. Dear students, because this is our last page of this lesson and this is 25 page number and this is last one of silver lining. So it's better to review the previous lesson of the silver lining. The story about Mr. and Mrs. Ahad, and they are running a guest house. Their daughter Maheen, little daughter Maheen, is deaf and dumb. It's very much special and she is very pretty as her mother. Mr. Nadeem is a guest who comes here to stay in the guest house, and he gave a solution for their daughter to make a chit note for the visitors to make aware them that the little girl is special. And the last one, Mr. David, is a very special one who comes at the last, and he saved the little girl from this tragedy of, and the Mrs. Ahad and Mr. Ahad, both parents and this couple became very happy after observing the solution of their daughter. So this is the first paragraph of the page number 25. The parents looked at each other with wonder and amazement. Our daughter has not laughed like this for years, Mrs. Ahad said. Curious, we watched the two of them, who were now walking towards us, hand in hand. Maheen ran to her mother and danced about her with joy. She made her queer sounds of ma, 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 and wildly pointed to the young man. It was Mr. David who came to our rescue. The meanings of these difficult words in this short paragraph are: amazement means surprise, curious, eager to learn more, queer, odd, wildly, extremely exaggerated. And the explanation about this short paragraph is this: the parents looked at each other with wonder and amazement when they received a new guest, Mr. David, in their guest house, and they were very much surprised when they observed that their daughter is feeling like extreme joy and happiness with that new guest, Mr. David. And this scene was very much happy source of happiness for the parents, Mrs. Ahad especially, because their daughter was a constant source of pain for them during these past 8 years, because little Maheen is very much deaf and dumb, and the situation is very much painful for the parents all the time. And now the person came, Mr. David, who gave the solution for their daughter. So this situation is very much surprising and source of joy for the parents. Mrs. Ahad saw that her daughter is dancing and is in extreme joy with that Mr. David. And next paragraph of the same page, we soon realized that he was deaf and dumb too. His strange ambiguous silences, his sudden rush for the girl on reading of the note, all became instantly clear to us. It took us time to digest the news, and then both parents broke into incoherent statements of profuse apologies that they had not noticed it earlier. Meanings of difficult words of this paragraph: ambiguous, vague or unclear, incoherent, confused, profuse, plentiful. We soon realized that he was deaf and dumb too. The parents, Mr. and Mrs. Ahad, came to know that Mr. David himself was deaf and dumb. His strange, ambiguous silences, his sudden rush for the girl on reading the note, all became instantly clear to us. We know when Mr. David came in the guest house after reading the chit, he immediately observing around the room where was the girl. So, and he rushed to the girl outside, and these all activities were very much surprised for the parents. But now all things were very much clear because he himself was deaf and dumb. So this situation is very much clear. That was little earlier was strange and ambiguous for the parents, and it took us time to digest the news, and it means it is very much surprising news for the parents that they took some time to understand the situation, and then both parents broke into incoherent statements of profuse apologies that they had not noticed it earlier. And after that, Mr. and Mrs. Ahad spoke some little bit statements and confused statements that, and they wanted to say apologies as excuse because they had not noticed earlier about Mr. David that he himself was just like their daughter. So this situation is for the parents little bit confused, but ultimately it became a source of happiness for the parents because their daughter is now under a solution. This is next paragraph of the same page. Imagining the type of man they were talking to, they spoke in half sentences and tried to convey the rest through gestures, but the young man had not the slightest difficulty in understanding them. He appeared to read their lips. He gracefully acknowledged their warmth and either nodded or shook his head in reply. For more complicated and lengthy answers, he used pen and paper. Difficult word and their meanings, gestures, signs, acknowledged, recognized. To read their lips mean to say understand words. Complicated, complex. Imagining the type of man they were talking to, they spoke in half sentences and tried to convey the rest through gestures. So in this first line of the passage, Mr. and Mrs. Ahad, they are trying to convey their message to Mr. David in some half spoke sentences with some gestures, but the young man Mr. David is fully understand all the situations what they wanted to utter, and he appeared to read their lips because he is grown up and he is educated from abroad or for foreign university, and that's why he easily understand all the situation, and just by their lip movement of their lips they can understand the words easily. He gracefully acknowledged their warmth and either nodded or shook his head in reply, and he easily gave responses and answered about their gestures, about their questions. But whenever there are more complicated and lengthy answers, Mr. David used pen and paper and he wrote the answers about the queries of the parents, and in this way they conversated each other for their daughter. So in all this discussion, Mr. David put forward a remedy for their daughter, how to solve in the future years. The next day, Mrs. Ahad was full of news. She talked as she had never talked before. She mentioned the stranger and the plans for betterment of Maheen he had outlined to her and her husband. There were schools of such people, he told them, though they were beyond most people's means. Difficult word meanings: outline, bordered, made. Second word, beyond, mean to say outside, and means income, source of incomes. In this short paragraph, Mrs. Ahad was full of news, mean to say she came to know that there are different institutions available in the society. Mr. David told them that there are the schools of such people available, although they are little bit costly for the common people, but available. And your daughter Maheen can get education from these institutions, and she can live like a normal human beings as Mr. David is living in the society. He had himself been educated in one such institution abroad and had now returned to Pakistan to render the same useful services to others by start chairing a school here. Difficult word meanings: abroad, overseas, or foreign, institution, organization, render, concentrate, steering, running. In this paragraph, Mr. David, who is the guest in this guest house, he said to the parents that he himself educated in such institutions in abroad, and he came back in Pakistan to serve the people of the country by starting a school here. So this news is also very much good for the parents, especially Mrs. Ahad, and for the Mr. David also. The next paragraph, she almost broke down with gratitude when she said that he had agreed to accept Maheen as his first pupil. He had emphatically stated that the girl could, in course of time, live almost as normal a life as any one of us who had the powers of hearing and speech. Broke down, become emotional, collapse in tears. Gratitude, thanks, pupil means student, emphatically means forcefully, in course of time means with the passage of time. She almost broke down with gratitude when she said that he had agreed to accept Maheen as his first pupil. Mrs. Ahad was very much emotional, and she was in tears when she listened that Mr. David is very much agree to accept their daughter as his first student. So he had emphatically stated that the girl could, in course of time, with the passage of time, Maheen, with the passage of time, can live life as a normal human being in the society, the people who can hear and speech. So there will be no difficulty for the Maheen to live in the society. So this news is very much blessing for the parents, especially for Mrs. Ahad. This is the next one paragraph. Mrs. Ahad laughed like a carefree girl. She gave us an extra helping of jam and butter and honey at the table. She looked the happiest woman in the world. Difficult word meanings: carefree, cheerful, helping, amount of food served. Explanation: Mrs. Ahad laughed like a carefree girl. Mrs. Ahad, in his whole life, in the past 8 years, she was very much disturbed. Now, during all these 8 years, very first time she feel like a cheerful girl, and she gave some extra butter and jam for the guests because she was in extreme happiness in this situation. She looked the happiest woman in the world. Now she is the happiest woman in the world. So this is the end of the lesson, and this is your home task. Make nouns from the given words: looked, watched, danced, realized, noticed, mentioned, educated, agreed, stated, laughed, and make adverbs from these adjectives: wonder, strange, ambiguous, complicated, lengthy. Thanks for watching. God bless us all.